The town of Madhapur woke slowly every morning like an old man stretching his tired limbs. The sun would rise gently over clay rooftops, women would sweep their courtyards, and the distant temple bells would echo through the narrow lanes. Life here followed a rhythm that had not changed in generations. And in one of those small, quiet houses lived a girl named Titli. No one remembered exactly when she got that name. Perhaps it was because, as a child, she could never sit still. She ran from one corner of the house to another, chasing sunlight, laughing at nothing, and asking endless questions. Her mother often said, "She's not a girl, she's a butterfly always fluttering, never resting." But as Titli grew older, her world began to shrink. The same courtyard where she once ran freely now felt smaller. The same sky she once admired from the rooftop now seemed farther away. Her laughter softened, her questions went unanswered, and slowly, she began to understand something unspoken. There were limits to how much she could dream. Titli often sat by the window of her small room. It was her favorite place. From there, she could see the road that led out of the town, the road that disappeared into a horizon she had never touched. Sometimes, she would imagine herself walking on that road, leaving everything behind, going somewhere no one knew her name. But imagination was the only place where she was free. Her father was a man of few words and firm beliefs. For him, life was simple: follow traditions, respect society, and never question the rules. Titli tried to understand him, but she couldn't understand why those rules felt so heavy on her heart. Her mother, on the other hand, was softer but silent. There were times when Titli caught her watching her with a strange expression, half love, half fear. As if she knew what her daughter felt but didn't have the courage to say it aloud. Years passed, and Titli's childhood slipped quietly into youth. With youth came attention. People began to notice her not just as a lively girl, but as someone who needed to be settled. Conversations about her future started happening in hushed tones. Relatives visited more often. Suggestions were made. Decisions were hinted at. And Titli listened. She listened as if she were hearing the story of someone else's life. One evening, as the sky turned orange and the air cooled, Titli sat by her window as usual. That day felt different. Something restless stirred within her. She didn't know why, but her heart felt unusually alive. That was the day she met him. He was not like the others in Madhapur. There was something in his eyes, a quiet curiosity, a sense of understanding that didn't need words. Their first conversation was simple, almost ordinary. But for Titli, it felt like the beginning of something she had never known before. For the first time, someone listened to her. Not just her words, but her silences. Days turned into weeks, and their meetings became a part of her life. They spoke about everything: dreams, fears, the world beyond Madhapur. He told her stories of places she had never seen. Cities where people walked freely, where choices were made by the heart, not dictated by society. And Titli listened with wide eyes, her imagination coming alive again. With him, she felt light like she used to as a child. But happiness, in her world, was never meant to last long. Rumors began to spread. In a town like Madhapur, nothing stayed hidden for long. Eyes watched, whispers grew louder, and soon, the unspoken became known. Her meetings, her smiles, her changed behavior, everything was noticed. And then came the silence. Her father stopped speaking to her altogether. Her mother avoided her gaze. The house, once filled with quiet warmth, now felt cold and distant. Decisions were made quickly, faster than Titli could understand. Her marriage was fixed. Just like that. No questions asked. No answers given. Titli wanted to speak. She wanted to scream, to explain, to hold on to the one thing that made her feel alive. But every word felt trapped inside her chest. Fear, duty, and helplessness wrapped around her like invisible chains. And he was gone. Whether he chose to leave or was forced to, Titli never knew. There were no goodbyes. No promises. Just an empty space where he once existed. The day of her wedding came like a storm. Bright lights, loud music, smiling faces, it all felt unreal. Titli sat there, dressed as a bride, her eyes blank, her heart heavy. People called her beautiful, lucky, blessed. But inside, something had already broken. Marriage brought a new life, but not a new beginning. Her new home was different, yet strangely the same. The walls were unfamiliar, but the expectations were not. Once again, she found herself adjusting, adapting, and slowly losing pieces of herself. Days blended into nights. Responsibilities replaced dreams. Conversations became formal, emotions restrained. And Titli. She changed. The girl who once chased butterflies now walked with measured steps. The girl who once dreamed of freedom now lived within carefully drawn lines. But somewhere deep inside her, a small part still remembered. Remembered the window. The road. The feeling of being understood. The dream of flying. Years passed. Titli learned to live her life the way it was expected of her. She smiled when she had to, spoke when necessary, and remained silent when it mattered most. But she was no longer the same. She had become stronger, not in a loud, visible way, but quietly, within herself. She had learned to survive in a world that never gave her a choice. One evening, much like the one years ago, she found herself standing near a window again. The sky was the same shade of orange. The air carried the same calmness. But Titli was different. She looked outside and saw a butterfly fluttering in the distance. For a brief moment, time stood still. A faint smile appeared on her lips, not of joy, not of sadness, but of understanding. She knew now. Freedom wasn't always about escaping. Sometimes, it was about remembering who you are, even when the world tries to make you forget. And as she stood there, watching the butterfly disappear into the horizon, Titli closed her eyes. Not to escape, but to hold on to the memory of flight. Because even if her wings were never meant to carry her far, they had once learned how to fly.